And now, let's talk to Byron Hewett. Byron is the CEO of a company known as BioBDx. Byron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
What does BioBDx do?
We have an objective quantitative test for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder that's FDA cleared. We call the test Quotient.
Okay. Now, what does that mean?
Well, we provide objective measures of inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity as an aid in the assessment of ADHD.
So not a drug.
Not a drug. It's a test. We don't get involved with the treatment other than to help guide a clinician to have a better idea as to whether or not the treatment is working.
Okay, so it's a piece of equipment, basically. Is that right?
Yes.
What's it look like? What is it?
It looks like a big laptop.
Okay.
So it's got a laptop computer embedded in it, and then it also has an infrared motion tracking system in it that measures movements greater than 1 millimeter 50 times a second.
So if the right term is patient or the person goes and takes the test, right? They sit in front of this?
Yes.
And take the test. The test records it.
Yes.
And how does it help? What does it do?
Right. So to take the test, it's 15 minutes for children.
Mm-hmm.
They see two different stimuli. One is an 8-pointed star. One's a 5-pointed star. When you see the 8-pointed star, you hit the space bar. When you see the 5-pointed star, you do nothing. These stimuli come every 2 seconds. Test lasts 15 minutes, as I said. And at the end, all this raw data is captured, and it goes over the internet to our servers, and then we provide the clinician back with a report in under a minute. So while they're taking this, what we call an attention task with these different stimuli on the screen, we're also tracking their movements with the infrared motion tracking system. So they have a reflector on their head, and we're tracking those micro movements during the time that they take the test.
You can tell if I'm bouncing around the room.
Yes.
To be blunt or something.
Yes.
Or what? Okay. That goes back. And this is important because so much of this in ADHD is subjective, isn't it? And you are taking it away from being subjective.
Well, the idea is that, yes, it's an ADHD assessment today is subjective in that there's a clinical interview. You get rating scales typically from teachers and parents, and the clinician takes all this information and comes up with their assessment as to whether or not the child has ADHD. We believe that providing objective measures of these deficits, we can help the clinicians. We're giving them better information than they've had in the past.
Okay. And the result is that it provides better treatment for the children.
Well,
right?
the idea is that if we can help the doctor better diagnose ADHD, that's helpful, because if someone doesn't have it, obviously you don't want them to be on medication. If they do have the disorder, you want them to be treated effectively. So one of the things that's also powerful about what we do is you can use our test post-treatment to assess the effectiveness of medication.
That's really great. ADHD is, in today's world, is now that it's being talked about more. It's not just the kid who's disruptive in class. It is a rampant sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the prevalence is about 7% of kids, about 4% of adults, about 40% of children will outgrow it. So it's sort of a developmental disorder. But
boys and girls?
Boys and girls. Boys tend to be diagnosed more than girls, partly because they're more disruptive in class. Girls are probably somewhat underdiagnosed because they oftentimes may be daydreaming. They're not necessarily disruptive in the classroom. So the symptoms or the signature of the disorder is somewhat different in boys versus girls.
When was this company started?
2006.
And how, why, when did you get involved?
Well, the technology was actually developed at McLean Hospital, which is part of the Harvard Partner System up in Boston. And so we licensed the technology exclusively. Marty Teicher is the inventor of the technology, spent 15 years developing all this capability. He's got numerous peer-reviewed publications out there about it. So in 2006, I was asked to join the board, which I did. And then about 2.5 years ago, the board asked me to begin running the company, which I've done for the last 2.5 years.
How many employees, how many units you have out there?
Yeah,
how's it going?
Yeah, it's going great, actually. We're 20 employees, and we've got 150 systems that are in the marketplace. And we're really excited because we just introduced the new portable system, the one that I was describing that's sort of like a big laptop. Prior to that, we had a much larger system that's much more expensive to manufacture. And so the new one, we believe, is going to help us penetrate the market much more quickly.
And the results are, from having 150 in the field and everything, in the number of years you've been in business, everything's encouraging, everything's doing well. Children are being helped, most importantly.
Absolutely. I mean, we've done over 50,000 tests with the technology in the last 5 years. We're growing quickly, so it's an exciting time for the company.
So how do you get involved in this sort of business? How do you get involved in this sort of industry? Why?
Well, it's a great question. When I was in college, my first marketing class is what got me excited about business. Prior to that, I was thinking about law school or whatever, and I kind of liked economics. But after I got my undergraduate degree in business, the economy wasn't the best at the time. So like a lot of people, I went to graduate school. I went right away and got my MBA at Northwestern. So while I was at Northwestern, I wound up doing a summer internship for Abbott Laboratories Diagnostics Division, and that introduced me to the diagnostics industry. I had a wonderful project working on the whole therapeutic drug monitoring market area, and my project at the end of the summer caused Abbott to make a decision to fund the development of a product line that later generated $450 million a year in revenue for the company. And so you can imagine as a 23-year-old,
what's the chance of that to have an impact?
Right.
You had an impact.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. It got me really excited about Abbott, really excited about the business world, and really excited about diagnostics, because testing is used to inform about 90% of physician decisions. So whether it's blood tests or it's imaging tests, it has an enormous impact on human healthcare.
Have you always been in diagnostics then?
Almost my entire career. I did one short stint with a medical waste treatment company, and I missed the clinical involvement on the diagnostics side and jumped right back into diagnostics.
So that one experience when you were 23 has set the tone.
For my entire career.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
One good experience.
Yes.
One very good experience. Yes. So, and then in terms of, you were in big pharma though, big companies.
Right.
So now you're in, things are different now.
They're very different.
You want to go back?
I've always, it's a great question. I've done 12 years with Abbott Laboratories, wonderful experience. Then I did 3 different startup companies, 2 of them on the West Coast. Then I went back to a big company. I ran U.S. commercial operations for Chiron Diagnostics back in 98. And so from there, I was with Bayer when Chiron was acquired by Bayer. Then I ran North America for QIAGEN. Then I became CEO at Immunicon, which is a company here in the Philly area.
Right.
And now I'm at BioBDx. So, I've done big and small, like them both, but I think I like the freedom and flexibility you have in a smaller company better.
Risks are bigger, though.
Risks are much bigger, but the ability to make an impact is also much higher.
So let's have the sheet of pros and cons, so to speak. And so, big company, small company, impact. Bigger impact, although you had a hell of an impact when you were 23 in what you did, but the impact, the flexibility, does it fit your personality? Which fits your personality?
Yeah, well, I think my wife would tell you that I've always been risk-oriented. And part of when I joined Abbott Diagnostics, it was a very entrepreneurial, small, rapid-growing division of a big company.
So you found the right home.
And so it was a good place for me to start. Wonderful place to learn a lot about the business world, get trained and educated in kind of how business works. I was sort of a reluctant salesperson. When I came out of business school, most people go off to be, a consultant or they're a product manager or something like that. Abbott made me take a sales job in Miami, and I was reluctant to take a sales job. I didn't know anything about selling, but I liked the diagnostics industry. I liked the company, so I went to Florida. I taught myself how to sell, and one of the guys I worked with made a really important statement. Byron, when you're in product management in a technology-driven company, if you understand the customer need, which you'll really only understand if you sold to them, you will have credibility beyond belief. If you haven't sold, you'll have no credibility with the people developing the next generation product. I thought that was wonderful advice, absolutely was. Later when I was a product manager, he was spot on. I had enormous credibility because I'd lived with those customers day in and day out.
So how did you like, did you like going in and knocking on the door?
In the beginning, I was petrified because one of the things that's very important to me is integrity, and I never wanted to be in a situation where I was having to compromise my ethics and my beliefs in order to get a sale. And one of the things I absolutely loved about selling for Abbott down in Florida is that I never had to compromise on anything. It was always, everything was perfectly ethical, done the right way, and as a result, it's very satisfying to know that you win and win big. Playing well. I wound up being number 2 in the country for Abbott Diagnostics back in 1981.
Wow. For the reluctant sales guy.
For the reluctant sales guy. And so it was a very, very fulfilling experience to know that I could win and win big in that environment.
So why did you end up doing what you were doing? If I met you when you were 14.
That's a great question. I was... sort of a somewhat nerdy, intellectual bookworm kind of kid, I guess, when I was younger. And so I read a lot, wanted to be good at sports, but knew I'd probably never be a great athlete. But so, you tend to go with what your strengths are. Freshman year in high school, my world geography teacher asked me to join the debate team. And I knew nothing about debate, but I figured I had nothing to lose. And so I jumped in and tried it, wound up being really good at it, a lot of fun. And so I think it was great to create an ability to think on your feet. I think it was great to learn how to speak in public. And so today I'm not shy about public speaking in any way. And it wound up being phenomenal training. And so...
Yeah, but it's more than that. It gives you confidence as a kid.
It gives you tremendous confidence.
You're not the athlete. Okay,
but you compete another way.
Yeah, and you're successful.
That's right.
And being successful as a child breeds confidence.
Yes, it
later
does.
on in life.
I also had a father who said, "Son, you can achieve anything in life you put your mind to.
Mm-hmm.
You're a bright kid. Never doubt yourself. Always go for it." And so my dad was there for me. He supported me. And, as I got into my 20s, he wound up being my best friend.
What did he do? He wasn't in pharma, was he?
No, he was an airline pilot. He flew for United Airlines for 36 years. And when he retired, he could say that he never scratched an airplane. And he was a very, very high standard guy.
You didn't see him all the time, though, did he?
I didn't
what
see
kind
him
of
all the
route
time.
is he like flying? He's flying all around, right?
Yeah, he flew a lot. But, when he was home, he was home.
Okay.
You know how a lot of guys are gone 9 to 5?
Yeah.
So my dad would be gone for 2 or 3 days at a crack. But when he was home, he's home for 2 or 3 days at a crack, which meant he had a really good idea of what was going on.
Right. That's a very good point. Byron, what's the website address of BioBDx?
It's www.biobdx.com.
Thank